Hi, this is John Hooms. I'm the Artistic Director of the Nashville Opera, and I want to welcome you to our third Masterclass of this year. I want to first mention our project partners for this series of Masterclasses we're doing this year. This is our third in the fall. We have 5 more in the spring coming up. Our project partners for this Masterclass are Tennessee State University, Dr. Robert Elliott, Head of Music Department, Fisk University, and the 105 Voices of History Choir, made up of singers from each one of the historically Black colleges and universities in the nation. We have special sponsors to thank for this as well that have helped make this possible. I want to thank the National Endowment for the Arts, Opera America Innovation Grant, and the Ann and Gordon Getty Foundation. I want to say a special thanks to South Arts and the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. And I also want to say thank you to our project manager, Patrick Daly, for helping put all this together. So we have 2 wonderful teaching artists with us today. Today's topic is opportunities for employment in the arts that outside of the field of performance. And with us, one of our teaching artists today is Ana de Archuleta. Ana de Archuleta has quickly established herself as one of the most sought-after managers in the operatic field. She represents a thriving roster of vocalists, conductors, and directors worldwide. Her vast background in the arts has played a major role in her success as an arts manager. Throughout her life, she's been involved in many facets of performing arts, such as an instrumentalist, a dancer, operatic stage manager, assistant director, opera chorister, and an operatic soloist. She is also a business member of Opera America and on the advisory board of the Siegel Music Colony, and she serves as a co-chair for the Women's Opera Network. Anna, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
And now I'd like to introduce Mr. Wayne S. Brown. I've known Wayne, I've known you since Louisville. We've known each other a long, long time, I think. We were mere children when we met.
Indeed, indeed.
On January the 1st, 2014, Wayne Brown was named president and CEO of Michigan Opera Theater. Before that, Wayne Brown served as director of music and opera for the National Endowment for the Arts, where he managed NEA grants for music and opera projects and directed the NEA Opera Honors and the NEA Jazz Masters Fellowships, the nation's highest honor in jazz and opera. During the year prior to his affiliation with the Arts Endowment, Wayne Brown served as producer of music programs for the Cultural Olympiad in Atlanta, Georgia, where he managed music events associated with the 1996 Olympic Games.
Before they were born.
Yeah, that's right. And Wayne, that must have been quite a job, and I bet you have stories. But welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, John. Delighted to be with you and delighted to share this time also with Anna.
Excellent. We're going to start. I have a couple of questions to kind of get us started, and then I'm sure the students here have some terrific questions. My first thing is the subject of this masterclass are careers in the arts, and careers in the arts that are not necessarily in performance, because there's a lot that go on in the arts outside of performing careers. There are especially administrative careers, and well, there's a large group of there's a large opportunity that people don't seem to know a lot about. So that's one thing we want to talk about today. So let me open this, and let me start with Ana. Ana, can you tell us some of the opportunities and careers that are available in the arts?
In the arts in general, or in the opera industry? Because in the arts in general, we can discuss how the organizations are built. If you think about how organizations are built, then you start sort of taking it apart. Most of the organization performing arts are nonprofit. So most of those companies have development departments, which are fundraising. So that's one way to work in the arts, that you're not being a performer, is fundraising. You also have marketing, which is how do you put the product out there for people to see. That is another area that we need people that have already a background in the arts to understand the passion for the art form. We also have arts administrators, which arts administrators are the ones who basically contract their artists. They are organizers of the chorus, the orchestras. They service the art form in general in the office, basically. We have general directors, executive directors, we have artistic directors, we have stage crew. There's just a gamut of positions and people that make the arts what they are. So yes, and a lot of those people that are there started like you, pursuing a career in the arts, either as a performer or as an instrumentalist.
Yeah. And Wayne, I know you were as the head of a performing arts organization in Michigan. Can you talk a little about your employees and the opportunities on the staff of an opera company?
Certainly. But well, I'd like to just kind of offer a little extension from Anna's comments, because I think what we've observed within the arts and culture world is a growth market, actually, when you think in terms of the nature of career options. In addition to the areas of marketing and development, the whole notion, if one has an interest and a passion for accounting, if one has an interest and passion for the legal field, there are increasingly needs for those who specialize in those areas to become affiliated, either as a member of the staff, as a member of the board, as a volunteer. So one can maintain a pursuit in areas other than the arts. But if you have a particular passion for the arts, you can do both. And so I like to think that in the opera world specifically, there is a wide range of options available for both employment and to learning and to participating as an audience member. Don't underestimate the value of that role. In terms of here at the Michigan Opera Theater, we're the only opera company that happens to own its parking center. So when you might say to yourself, now how does that relate to the opera company? Well, it's a form of unrelated business, which so happens that the Opera House and our parking center, which is where our performance took place of Twilight Gods, and we'll talk about that later, we converted, if you will, a parking center into a performance venue. And it so happens to be right next door to Comerica Park, home of the Detroit Tigers, and just less than a quarter of a mile to the Ford Field. So our parking center generates a little over $1 million a year in unrelated business income to support the work of the opera company itself.
You're jealous, John?
So it's about it's about all of us must continue to explore ways to make what we do relevant, far-reaching, engaging to others who perhaps may not be involved in our organization directly, but indirectly can still be affiliated.
Wow. Wayne, I'm so jealous of your parking garage.
I know.
That's so brilliant.
That decision preceded me, but I'm
Ah.
delighted to leverage that decision to maximum
sure.
benefit.
Definitely. Just a little sidebar while we're on it. Would you mentioned the show that you just did in the parking garage? I'm not sure if everyone here knows much about it. Would you talk a little about that, and then we'll get back on subject? But
Certainly, I'll give you try a condensed version.
Yeah.
We've just engaged a new artistic director by the name of Yuval Sharon, who's a founder of an organization in Los Angeles known as The Industry, small I. And so in this case, it was about finding a way to, during this time of the pandemic, to offer our audiences an opportunity to have an in-person performance. And so we started out with something called the Twilight Gods. That's taken from Twilight of the Gods, Wagner's Ring Cycle, the final opera. We took a 6-hour production and condensed it to 65 minutes. And on each level of the parking center, there are 7 levels. A caravan of 8 cars would have a 6 to 8 minute segment. And on each level, it would we would progress, we would forward that segment of cars to enjoy the art form. So it's going from the safety of your vehicle to being able to have an in-person experience with an artist less than 10 feet. And you can't get any closer than that even in the opera house, even though no matter how hard John tries to do that on a continuing basis, or all of us try to do it on a continuing basis in the main house. But it provided a wonderful opportunity. We sold out 3 performances in 36 hours. We added a performance that sold out in 2 hours and still turned away 200 cars of those who wanted to participate in the program. It was reviewed by all the top news media. And the real takeaway from my point of view was when the New York Times described, if we had not been in a pandemic, the project could still have stood on its own as a significant operatic experience. I think the overall takeaway there for all of us underscores, as Anna pointed out, the need to be inventive, nimble, exploratory, and not necessarily applying tried and true formulas to think that that will sustain us going forward. So we'll save Twilight Gods kind of debriefing for another time.
That's great. Very inventive, for sure. Does anybody have any question from our students here? And Patrick, once again, if you would help me spot people. Thank you. Anybody have anything? If not, I have a question for Anna. All right. Let me ask then. We'll start. So Anna, with management, can you talk a little about how you ended up with what you're doing now? Because you started as a singer.
Yeah.
And how did you get into the role of artist manager?
Well, it's a very interesting story. I was I come from Puerto Rico, and I did my master's degree in University of Cincinnati at CCM. I was pursuing a career in singing at that point. I did young artist programs. I was sort of on the verge of getting an agent so I can start my professional career. And I sort of had a revelation. I sort of had a conversation with professional singers that I was working with, and I asked them about the lifestyle. And they basically told me that, you know, a lot of them are gone for 10 months out of the year. They didn't see their families that often. So it came to me that I really wasn't cut out to do that. I mean, I love the art form. I love voices. I love opera, but I wasn't really interested in being away from home. I wanted more traditional lifestyle. So it occurred to me that I wanted to still be involved in the opera business. Some people leave the singing part of it and then they just kind of disappear from it. I wanted to be part of the industry. So I was thinking, how can I make this happen? So I discussed doing an MBA, maybe doing an internship. So I had already moved to New York, and I talked to a friend of mine, and he said, my agent is looking for an associate, an assistant. And I said, well, okay, that sounds great. Let me give him a call. So within 2 months, I was working for an agency as an assistant. I have a background. I have a degree in broadcasting and communications, as well as my degree in voice. And I've owned businesses since I was 20 years old. So I am very, my balance between arts and business is there all the time. So management sort of fit very, very well with who I am. I have a passion for voices. I was at that level where I knew a lot of young artists. So they trusted me with their careers. And a couple of years after I started with this agent, then I opened my own company, which is 16 years ago. What does a manager do? Like, you want to probably find out. We are in charge. We're the front office of opera singers and conductors and stage directors. We are here to facilitate their careers in many ways. It's guiding them through decision-making process as to repertoire, where to go, how to build their career, but also the servicing, how to negotiate a contract, discussing doing repertoire and programming with theaters such as Michigan Opera Theater or Nashville Opera. So I hover, as a manager, I hover over many different areas of the opera industry. And I'm connected to artists and to producing companies to try to match artists and producing companies. So I'm that connector. So I am a great option for somebody that is very passionate about the industry in general, that understands voices, that likes repertoire. There's a repertoire nerd. Those are the kind of things that you need to sort of focus if you are ever interested in being an artist manager.
Very good. All right. Wayne, let's go back to you for a second, because you've led a number of different organizations, symphony, as well as opera, and not to mention the National Endowment for the Arts. What can you talk a little about the opportunities in administration in an opera company, or a symphony as well? Whether what you look for, like in a different positions.
I look for smart people
and things.
I look for smart people. I look for people who have a sense of curiosity, a sense of self-assuredness, highly motivated, disciplined, and who will add to the breadth and the experience of those who are already employed. In other words, so we can always think in terms of lifelong learning is something we try to practice. Not lifelong learning just in terms of an art form, but lifelong learning in terms of experience in life and how we might benefit from a wide range of perspectives and interests. So as much as I tried, first of all, I'm delighted, John, to learn about this class and the work that you've taken on, and a commitment by Nashville Opera and its relationship to its community to provide a platform for young people to explore those possibilities in their lives. And I'm delighted that the alliance with the HBCU the program is meaningful. I'll just offer just a sidebar just for a second, the 105 Voices program that Patrick Daly was a participant. I was very much familiar with that program during my time with the Arts Endowment, and it was a terrific initiative which had history going back to the White House in terms of its relationship and the HBCUs. However, in terms of the kinds of things that I look for, is that something about how can the company make progress. And something that was created 4 years after the race riots in Detroit, declared that he wanted to have an opera company in downtown Detroit. There were those who wanted to suggest that perhaps he might build it in suburbs, but he said, no, I believe in Detroit. And to the degree that audience members and young people can see themselves on stage, it will indeed have a lasting effect in terms of their own development, exploration, and curiosity. And I believe that's certainly been the case. And I have taken on that commitment to make sure that we move the needle even further, that we don't rest on our laurels based on what we have accomplished. And there have been several significant points. And for example, I remember during my time with the Arts Endowment, making a visit to Detroit to see production of Margaret Garner, based on the composer Richard Danielpour, and based on the novel Beloved by Toni Morrison. It was an incredible experience, and it also coincided with a meeting of Opera America to have a conference based on diversity in the art form. And I can truly say that that was it was an early step by Opera America and the field to try to make sure we understand what we put on stage, how we engage audiences before, during, and after a production can have a lasting effect. And that's the kind of lesson I think more and more of our fellow opera companies are practicing, observing, and that's how we think in terms of growing the art field. So going back in addition to having smart people, I want to make sure that that when you come to see me or any member of my staff and want to explore the possibility of a staff relationship, that you've done your homework, that you know what we do, that you have a sense of the nature of our programs. And if you were going to apply for a position with my company, I would expect that you would attend performance before you even come to talk to us. Let's go to how you have a PR. So that when you're doing a career with a particular organization, that you do your homework, that you know the distinction that John plays with the Nashville Opera and has done so for years, and is one of the most respected people in our industry. But it's and therefore that sense of curiosity suggests to me this is someone who's invested, who will do their homework, who has a sense of who we are as an organization, the role that we play in the community, and that for me conveys a message of discipline, curiosity, and a desire to and a thirst for more information. So I think it starts with that self-assessment and making sure that your materials are appropriately positioned. But even beyond that, the whole notion of being able to explore information interviews can be equally valuable, whether you're looking for a job or not, to get a sense of whether or not an organization and its culture is right for you. And so it's right pairing. Sometimes people who are highly skilled may not necessarily be the ones who are hired, because it's also a matter of culture compatibility with the organizations, with others with whom you'll work, and what you bring to the table, whether or not that aligns with particular need of a given organization. But I'd be more interested in getting a sense of our young people who are part of this call, because right now I see a lot of bright, curious, inquisitive images, but I don't have a clue beyond that.
Well, let's open it up. Patrick, does anybody have any questions for our two teaching artists? Yeah, Mr. Warner.
I'll introduce myself first because he said he wanted to get a sense of who we are. Hi, my name is Kendall Warner, and I am currently a junior at Tennessee State University. It's very nice to meet the both of you, and thank you for being here today. I wanted to ask a question for Miss Anna, or Anna, whichever it is. I don't want to mispronounce your name. As a manager, where you are currently in your career, would you say that more so you look for artists and clients, or clients and artists look for you? And then my follow-up to that would be, what would you look for in the clients that you either accept or look for?
That's a very good question, and I get asked that a lot. So at this stage of my career, because I am a sort of a more established agency, there is a combination of the two. Sometimes if I travel a lot and to see performances, to visit my clients and to see all kinds of shows, I mean, up to March. And so I get to hear a lot of singers. I go to young artist programs in the summer. So I am constantly, like I said, hovering over a lot of people. And sometimes if I am interested in an artist, I sort of come to them and I said, listen, I like what you did. I would like to keep in touch. Here's my contact information. Just let's start a relationship. It's very rare at this time where you have an agent basically is going to say, oh yeah, I want to represent you right away. We want to not only know you as an artist, but as a person, because it's very important for us that relationship is solid, and not solid for a year, but 2 and 3 for a decade. We want that to be a long-term relationship. So it starts slowly. Sometimes I get approached by artists that I don't know, because maybe Wayne recommended them or John recommended them. And I said, okay, let me hear you. And then I'm interested, and then we start that relationship. So it comes both ways. As far as who reaches who, but we are pretty established at this point. So that means that we don't really need to go out there and scout for talent, but we are always welcome hearing young singers and see where people are. As far as what I'm looking for, I love that Wayne said curiosity, because for me, that is huge. Curiosity is what makes you grow, is what makes artists say, okay, so I'm at this place, how do I get to this place? The way you get there is by wanting to find out more information, grow in your knowledge, how to be better. So curiosity is very important. The material has to be there. When I represent an artist, I want to know that they have something to say. They physically have to have an instrument to be able to say what they want to say, because that's how you paint. You need an instrument, right? But here and here is where the art happens. It's in your brain, it's in your heart. It's what you have to say with your voice, with your talent. So I want also somebody that is smart enough in a sense of business, that see their career as a business as well as something that you want to do because you like it. You have to see how to maximize the opportunities that you get, how to network. So that savvy is very important to me. If you don't have it, then having the curiosity to build it is another. So at this point, if you add the COVID, the pandemic, what I'm looking in an artist is being very flexible. So just so you know, as young singers, you're going into the world of opera after a pandemic, you gotta be nimble, you gotta be flexible, you gotta be able to go in different places and try different things. Being too strict in your art is gonna work against you. So those are the kind of things that I always look for. I mean, everybody wants to work with people they like. So having that kinship with somebody is very important, as well as being an artist in what you're saying. Does that answer your question, Kendall?
Yes, very accurately. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, very good.
Ms. Stone, you have your hand up.
Yes, I'll introduce myself as well. Hi, I am Elisha Stone. I am currently a junior at Tennessee State University, and I major in music but concentration in technology. So my question for you all is, being positioned at an already established business. So, what does growth look like for you all's business, especially in a pandemic? But if we were also not in a pandemic, what does growth look like in the art industry? Like, yes, it's possible to maintain, sustenance, especially, with Detroit having an audience and everything. But outside of that, what does a growing establishment look like for you all?
Wayne, you want to take that first?
Sure, I'll start. First of all, it's Alicia, is that correct? Yes, I'm pleased to meet you, and I'm also delighted to know of that combination of interest that you have of music and technology. Because if there is indeed a defined next step, one of the things that this pandemic has made perfectly clear to us is that digital platform for companies is essential. At the time of the pandemic in mid-March, we were just in the midst of rehearsals for a production of Champion by the composer Terence Blanchard. We just completed rehearsals, and I had to go in and say to members of the cast, ladies and gentlemen, delighted you're here. Unfortunately, we are unable to proceed. That's one of the most unfulfilling kinds of messages that needed to be shared, because these are the artists who prepared, who had their scores in place. There was Denise Graves, there was Kenneth Kellogg. I mean, there are just any number of people in star roles, supporting roles, the like, and to share it with them, they were unable to go on. Well, the point that we found ourselves, that so many of our colleagues, unless you're at the Metropolitan Opera or any number of other companies that have developed a long-term history of archival material, which then they could make available to their public, we were in a position of having to say, well, we don't have that history, and we're going to have to start something quickly. So we created something called Michigan Opera Theater, otherwise known as MOT. So we had to talk about MOT at home. And it was the beginning of creating that digital platform, which was critical in terms of being able to maintain a connection with our audience. And that's the point that I'm talking about. The absence of an in-person experience, the in-person performance experience requires looking at things differently. So it's the technology, not only in terms of that digital platform performances, but it's also the technology related to the interworkings of the performance itself, how technology is used, how our building, which it will be we'll observe our centennial of the Opera House as a building in a year and a half. It is not, I mean, it's historically it's significant, and all of the ribbons and so forth, points of distinction, but it does not have the capacity to address a current day, let alone tomorrow, and being able to be adaptable to being able to incorporate the technology that is just so essential in creating new work. And so when I think about subsequent hires, when I think about the bench strength and the talent that I need to make sure it's around the table, it's someone who has a passion for music, experience in the area, but also has a passion for technology, because I believe that's going to be a growth market for our industry. And therefore that combination is going to have a higher profile than perhaps someone who may not. So I look forward to learning more about you, Alicia, as you continue to evolve.
That's awesome. Well, as far as our growth, and it's very interesting because we as an agency, we had to make very, very fast decisions on March because we lost immediately in a day, we lost 75% of our revenue. So it was, and the prospect of losing the summer is very low as far as income for us, because summer festivals are not that many. There's not the volume of work that there usually is during the year. So we knew we were going into a low part of the season. So I had to make very fast decisions. I had to cut my staff. I have to get rid of my office in New York. So I have to basically go into sort of hibernation mode as far as cost was concerned, and sort of eliminate all the extra costs so we can ride through the storm. And I had a feeling that it was going to be a while. So I did it very quickly. So my artists will still have a home to call theirs, to have a support system. It's very important for artists to have a good agent, a good agency, because we are here to support them and to give them, you know, the perspective of the world of the industry, because they don't get it. They sort of get only what is in front of them. They don't get to see the other side of it. So they see the world of the industry through our eyes. So we wanted to have that for them. As far as growth is concerned, it is very important to me where I've gotten in my career to make a difference in the industry, not only to make more money, not only to make the agency bigger, not only to get contracts at the Met and La Scala. I want our artists to have a career. I want them to fulfill their dream of performing, and I want companies to survive. So it's very important for me that I am a leader in the industry that is going to help the industry move forward. So there's all these aspects, you know, when you're younger, your tunnel vision. I want to succeed. I want to be, but for me now, it's about the global industry. And I want us to be relevant enough to make a difference within it. And if that means that we don't make as much money for a year or two until we get that going, then that's the way it is. So this kind of situations where I'm here right now with you, it's very important to me. This is growth for us.
Does anybody else have yes, Ms. Hinton, yes.
Hi, my name is Alicia Hinton. Please forgive the music in the background. I'm at work. And yeah, I have a question for Anna.
Yes.
My question was, I know that you said you have a communications degree,
Mm-hmm.
and then you pursued your master's degree in vocal performance. I will be graduating soon with a degree in marketing and communications as well. And I do have hopes to go and get my master's degree in voice, but a lot of people tell me that they may be a little difficult since I didn't major in voice in undergrad. So I wanted to see if maybe, did you have any difficulties with that transition, and what steps did you take?
It was, I remember that very clearly because I didn't finish. I did have some credits undergrad as a for voice performance at the conservatory in Puerto Rico, but I never finished that degree. So I was sort of in that place where I thought, you know, some places will require you to have a degree in that and some don't. The University of Cincinnati College Conservatory did not require a degree in voice performance to get a master's in voice performance. So you got to find the right school. I auditioned for Peabody. Peabody didn't require a degree in voice performance. As long as you did do your audition and you had a certain training, like I already had theory and I had a lot of music credits, but I didn't have the actual degree. So it's all about finding the school that would allow you to do that. And I cannot remember if it's a university, if it's under a university that you can do it, or under a conservatory. It's been too long. But I remember there was a distinction. Some places required, I think it was conservatories required you to have the degree in voice performance to apply for a master's or an artist diploma in voice performance. But you have to just do your research. But yeah, I mean, my mom didn't let me just have a degree in voice performance. She basically, as a good Latin woman, she said, you are not just studying music, you're studying music and something else. So I remember thinking, okay, so I love film, I love TV, I love that kind of work, and I love communications and telecommunications. So I said, okay, I'll get a degree in that at the same time. And I'm so glad I did, because I am at this right now. It was fantastic. I know how to edit. I know how to do a lot of things that was taught to me there. We studied film, TV, radio, all that stuff. Of course, it was in the 90s, so everything was analog, but it applies to digital at some point. But I encourage people to, if you have those degrees, to put them in your resume. Make sure that when you apply for any job, or even for a singing job, let people know that you are a well-rounded professional, that you're not just one thing, that you have all these areas in your life that even if you were a football player, or if you were a dancer, or if you were into painting, that makes you a 3D human, and people want to work with you because you do have all these angles and all these things to offer. Okay, don't be shy to let people know.
Yeah. I do want to say too, I know, Ms. Rainbow, I see your hand, but I just want to say too that we're talking here about the subject was about opportunities outside of performance. However, since we have these two people in the room, and Wayne Brown hears, I'm sure, a ton of singers and has heard a ton of singers, and Anna hears a ton of singers, and Wayne hires singers. You may want to check with Wayne on what he looks for in a performance and a singer. And with Anna, do not be modest, Anna. Everybody wants to be on Anna's roster. She honestly is one of the best agents around.
Thank you.
And takes care of her people.
Thank you.
So,
thank you.
There's a lot of other knowledge in the room here if you want. Ms. Rainbow, what is your question?
Hello, everyone. My name is Anastasia Rainbow. I'm a senior at Fisk University, studying vocal performance. My question is directed towards Mr. Wayne Brown. And my question is, as president and CEO of Michigan Opera Theater, are you responsible for what operas that are premiered each season? Or are you not? And do you have any say in casting wise and what you're looking for in a cast for an opera? That's my question.
Well, thank you for your question, Anastasia. I'm curious to know, are you a singer?
Yes.
And
yes, I am.
And I am, what is your voice?
Coloratura. Soprano.
Uh-huh. Well, number one, you offer a point of distinction, and therefore, you know, that's a great question. We have an artistic director, newly appointed, Yuval Sharon, as I mentioned earlier, and we work collaboratively. And in fact, I believe that you'll find increasingly a number of opera companies, and not just opera companies, but the collaborative perspective matters. Our artistic director, however, has a particular, may have a vision for a particular production, particular work, or may have curiosity of certain kinds of voices, how they pair. And John can get into that in greater detail because he's been doing it for years. But I would say that it's not just the isolated voice that is part of the experience. It's context. How does this voice align with a particular production that we have in mind? Or how does this voice align or present itself in terms of triggering ideas about specific works that we may wish to mount? So there are just so many factors which go beyond what you may do. But I would say, no matter what, give it your best, as if it's the only time that that really matters at the time of that audition. Make sure that, you know, if you had a distraction earlier in the day, put it aside. So that moment that you are performing, you're giving it your all, and let come out of that the best that you're able to demonstrate. And so I would say, and therefore, the direct question to the correct answer is not so much exactly who decides whether or not it's person X, Y, or Z, but focus your attention on giving it your all, because the makeup of those to whom you will be performing, you'll not really know whether or not it's behind box A, box B, or box C. It's the totality of the experience, and make sure that that moment is yours, that you own it, and that you not take it for granted, and let whatever comes out of that, let that be.
Very good. Caitlin, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I'm Caitlin Burgess, a junior at Tennessee State University, and I am a commercial music technology major. I want to ask you, like, as an entry level, like, live sound engineer, what are some things that I guess we can do to stand out amongst all the other ones when it comes to applying for internships at venues and different theaters like that?
That's a great question, and I think it's very apropos for where we are in the industry right now. Do you have a demo?
I have like AV reels, and I have like where I've done live sound stuff before.
Well, it's important that if you have any work, and this applies to singers as well, it's important that you see yourself as a business in its entirety. So you, whenever anybody sees your work or stumbles into your work, they will, the first thing that people do is they Google you. They Google you and they want to find you. So you got to make sure that whatever is on the internet about you is well curated and it shows you at your best. So that's something that you can do, because even when you apply to jobs, people will see the samples and they want to find more. So make sure that if, without spending a lot of money, there is a presence out there that describes you as not only as an engineer, but also as an artist, because you are an artist, you are creating something. Okay. So also the other thing is, everybody has a brand, and that brand comes from what's important to you, what your why. And again, this applies to your work as a sound engineer or to your work as a singer. Why do you do what you do? And that answer will continually change over the years, okay? So make sure you write something down, like a mission statement, something that says, this is who I am as an artist, and this is why I do what I do. Because even if you're not telling people that interview you or looking at you for a job, you will know it. And that security and that assurance that you'll carry with that will make you stand out, okay? So make sure you also have a board of directors. You have 4 or 5 people that you trust in your industry that can take a look at that reel and take a look at your demo and say, all right, this works, this doesn't work. Don't make that circle too big, because you don't want too many cooks in the kitchen, but have people you trust that you can actually say, this is what I'm presenting for my interviews, for my internship. What do you think? Give me some feedback. So you got to learn to be flexible and know how to take feedback. And again, this applies for all of you. Know who to take feedback from and what matters to you as far as that feedback is concerned. Okay, that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Is anybody else?
There's a yeah.
Miss Hinton, yes.
Okay. This question is for Wayne. Again, I'm Alicia, born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, and that's where I was able to connect with you. I wanted to know, what are some opera companies that I could look into in this time? Yeah, that's pretty much.
Well, I'm delighted to meet a fellow Detroiter, and that matters. And your energy comes across the screen. So I'll just make that point. And particularly for someone who is interested in marketing communications, it's all about how one presents themselves. And when you are next in Detroit, let me know so we can have a chat.
Yes, sir, will do. Absolutely. Thank you.
Let me add to that just a little piece of information for a lot of you is that while we're going through this pandemic, a lot of companies are really focusing on their local talent. So it's very important that you know where your homes are. Like I say homes because you are local wherever you have a bed and you have a family. Okay, you're not local just where you live. You have people around the world where you have a family member or a house. It's important that you keep that in mind because companies are going to stay local as much as possible. The opportunities are going to be presented and they're going to utilize them that way. Okay.
That's great. Now, John, if I may go back to an earlier question that was raised by Anastasia, the coloratura, and I want to say something else, and that has to do with when you learn that there is a particular role that a company may be looking for, make sure that someone with whom you trust can validate that the circumstances, the role, the opportunity is right for you at that particular moment. You want to make sure that there's a state of readiness that's in place. Because sometimes, particularly if it's a formal audition, it may be too soon. And you want to make sure that the opportunity that you have is one that there's a state of readiness. And so whether it's the coach or the person with whom you trust and who believes in you, who understands you, and who will not necessarily agree with everything that comes out of your mouth, but will offer you honest feedback, that you make sure that that opportunity is explored with in a way that will allow you to put your best foot forward, and not just because it's an opportunity that presents itself. And the other point I would make, I would underscore the same issue with Anna. It reminds me that I would encourage all of you to think about information interviews. That can be an invaluable experience. It's about information interviews allows you to learn more about a company or an individual, and for them to learn more about you, apart from whether or not there is a specific position opening. And during this time, I suspect you may find it a little easier to navigate within your own community opportunities for a conversation that is not necessarily related to wanting to have a job in 3 months, but it's about who is the person, what do you bring to the table, what kinds of things you might explore when you're ready to pursue something actively. And I'd like to encourage it all the time. So the fact that you have John Holmes right in your own backyard, and apart from the class, if there's something in particular that you're curious about, that you want to learn more about feedback relative to your own situation, call John.
Network.
Absolutely.
Network, baby. That's right. Ms. Stone, you have your hand up.
Yes, I had another question. So for a non-performing career, entry level, what are some mistakes that you have made or were about to make at that early stage that you could perhaps give unto us as advice so we can work around certain things?
I think it's very important what Wayne said. I'm sorry, Wayne, I don't mean to cut in front of you, but I think what you
Ladies
said
first.
was what's I mean super important, which is do your homework. I think that's the biggest mistake as a young professional that you make is sending a letter or sending an email or reaching out to a producer or a company and not know enough about them. When you write that email that says to whom it may concern, I mean, most of our websites have our names on it. You know exactly who you should be sending that email to. Do not make that mistake. Don't go into a meeting. They finally give you a meeting. Don't go into a meeting without knowing who you're meeting with. Do your research, Google it. Everything is online now. I think that is my biggest pet peeve with young professionals, is because I made that mistake too, is that you think you can skip those steps. You can't. Just again, lean on your team, people that you trust. Whenever you're putting a letter together, a cover letter, lean on somebody to look at it and give you feedback. Don't just trust your eye. Just go to somebody else and say, hey, do you mind helping me looking at this to make sure that it's well presented? Don't take the easy way when you write cover letters for your appointment, for your interviews or your resume. Don't just write one general cover letter and send it to everybody. It doesn't work. Just really be specific to who you're applying for. It takes a little bit more time, but that is very crucial for people to see you. Okay, that will be my recommendation.
And if I may follow up on that, if you write a letter to me and you don't address me by name, it will not be read.
It's true. Me neither.
So in other words, if you're interested in getting my attention, make sure it's not generic, and make sure that your generic letter doesn't refer to an organization that you may have applied to a month ago.
I know. That has happened too.
So in other words, as Anna has pointed out, invest the time to make, because this is your presentation, this is your calling card, this is your introduction to that individual with whom you hope to have an affiliation. And if you haven't taken the time, it's not going to be to your advantage in any subsequent communication that you may send.
Very true. Anybody else? Patrick, are you okay? We haven't heard from you today. So.
This is it's very unlike me, because I usually would be like in all the time. But I'm taking, just like the kids, I'm taking in so much as well. I'm really, really enjoying this. I have like 3 questions here, but I'm going to not say them all, because I would definitely like for my students to say them all. But as following as in their example, hello, I am Patrick Daly, countertenor and the director and founder of the Big Blue ARP Initiatives at Tennessee State University and project manager for the Big Blue Fellows. So thank you both so much for being a part of this. One of those questions, kind of going back to a point that was made earlier by Mr. Brown, regarding the production that you all did, and just looking at how, again, as has come back many times, this idea of moving forward in a growing industry and a growing organization, right? That example of the piece that you all did within the garage adjacent, and also having ownership of that space, also coupling with, of course, what Nashville Opera has done with One Vote One, just looking at how, my question would be regarding ways that we integrate other industries into the arts, other organizations, things that wouldn't necessarily seem like they go together. A lot of times what we do see consistently are things like, oh, well, here's for instance, what On-Site Opera did, I want to say last year with Andy and some other great artists doing a production of them all in the soup kitchen in New York, right? Like, that was wonderful, but usually that also pairs with like another nonprofit. how are some ways and some ideas to think about how we gather with the corporate spaces or in the and in things that are not necessarily the nonprofit sector, increasing our leverage and our strength in those regards as well?
Anna, you want to go first?
No, you do. You're the producer here.
So there are a couple of things that come to mind. One of the things that came up out of our project with Twilight Gods had to do with what did Yuval Sharon have in mind when he agreed to join us as artistic director. And during the search, I said, I'm also interested in someone who will embrace Detroit. And so he came to Detroit on his own. He spent a lot of time just in touring throughout the community, trying to get a sense of the energy, the chemistry, and the like. And he came up with the title, when I mentioned the parking, and it's a parking center, not just a garage. What distinguishes it? Because we have three retail, we have office space, we have a public relations firm, and accounting firm, meaning it's more than just parking cars. And so therefore parking center for us takes it up a notch from those who just provide parking spaces. But my point is, one of the things that you've all addressed was because we wanted to make sure that there was a Detroit voice associated with Twilight Gods. So we identified someone who's a community leader, a fixture in our community by the name of Marcia Music, who is a master, she masters the spoken word. And she adapted some of the language associated with the text associated with the Twilight Gods to keep in mind a Detroit flavor, if you will. And in the same way that the orchestration that was used for one of the segments with the dancers from Wayne State University applied a Motown motif. So that would still remain true to Wagner, but offered another kind of connection. And it's about connections is the point that I'm attempting to make. When we performed a work by Daniel Sonnenberg called The Summer King, based on the life of Josh Gibson, who was about around the same time as Jackie Robinson. We partnered with the Detroit Tigers. And had Willie Horton to serve as one of the co-chairs of the collaboration, along with George Shirley, who represented that perspective on behalf of the art form, of the opera art form. So it's finding authenticity within those partnerships, which ultimately allows us to move the needle. And I think that's perhaps the overarching curiosity that might be there. How do you determine partners? And how do you determine partners perhaps that are unlikely, but will also capture the attention of a larger public? I think we look outside the box. We look beyond those with whom we interact all the time. Otherwise, we'll have the same kinds of results. And I think that that's been an important element for us, and it's one that we will likely build upon.
I will add to that. It's all about the negotiation. You got to find partners that you know could benefit from that partnership as well, that there's something in it for them. So whenever you think about any sort of odd partnership or partnership, even with for-profit organization, is like, where are the holes? Like, where do you get to know them well enough to see where are the gaps in their marketing? Like, how can they benefit from partnering and making a production of some sort, building donor base, or you got to figure out what is it for them? What's in it for them, basically.
Thank you for that, both of you, Mr. Brown and Ms. Dr. Archuleta. I had another, and kind of to underscore that to a degree, kind of, and using something that many of us are familiar with, going back a little bit to the 105 Voices of History, of which I was in the inaugural choir, and I've continued working with the organization since. One of our partners and has consistently been with 105 has been Aetna. Aetna, the healthcare industry, right? And many of the workshops that we incorporated during our days in 105 as students were regarding Aetna's healthcare things and things like that. And so sometimes, you know, you had a bunch of young kids. We were all, many of us were music majors, many of us weren't. And I bring that into fray because not everyone that's even on this call, right? We have students, Summer, who, Ms. Hinton, of course, who is a student of mine, and she is she's a communications major. We have the, you know, people who are doing the recording industry arts and things of that nature. And of course, performance. But not everyone who's going to be in these spaces are going to be music majors. And so some people wanted to say, oh, we should only be doing music focused things. Well, if we only do music focused things, then we don't necessarily see how the other spaces intersect. And we don't necessarily see how we can build greater partnerships and also provide opportunities into those partnerships and into those industries. And so, so that's just one thing to underscore that. I hope somebody question before I ask my next one, because I definitely do have one myself. Don't see anyone? Okay, so I'm gonna take the moment, if that's all right. My next question would be, and kind of to underscore that, as we are moving forward, and Anna spoke about us, you know, growing the industry and being a leader in the industry and the diversity, and as we all have spoke about as well, what are some things that HBCUs can do, and even other organizations can do in partnership and in growth of HBCUs, in strengthening those pathways, not just to performance. There are a number of us who are performing from HBCUs, and that's usually the kind of direction, but also strengthening those pathways into arts administration, into management, and so on and so forth.
I'm going to start with the leaders of the schools and the teachers need to connect with Opera America or institutions like the League of Symphony Orchestras, and because those companies are conglomerates of producing companies, and they have the intent of making the industry more diverse. So once you connect with them, there are performance forums where you can connect with young artist programs leaders, and sort of basically talk to them about how you can combine your efforts of the school with their young artist programs or internship to try to feed some of the talent up to those programs. But that's all in the connection and conversation, because those programs are starting to build slowly. But if you can connect with the leaders in the actual programs and say, I want you to pay attention to my group or my university or this group of universities that I think could be great for what you're trying to do, that connection will open some doors for you. So you have to be proactive connecting with leaders in the industry, because they are trying to diversify and to make our art form look more like our country. So they really want to do it, but we have to facilitate, because sometimes they just say, oh, we just can't find them. Well, here they are. Let me show you. That's what I try to do all the time. It's like, don't look always in that direction. Look in this direction too. So I'm trying to draw their attention to other places. So it's your job as leaders in the university to sort of try to connect and network at that level.
The only thing I would add to that excellent advice that Anna has given is make, at the same time, make sure that a sense of entitlement does not come with the overture. You have to demonstrate what you bring to the conversation. You have to demonstrate what distinguishes you as an artist or as an individual with particular skills from others. And I think that sense of curiosity and engagement is right on track. And I can't think of a better moment than now, as Anna pointed out, leveraging the relationship, in this case with HBCUs, and I would say Opera America and the orchestra field, and also your local state arts councils. I mean, there's I had a role of as a public service experience with the National Endowment for the Arts. I wish more Americans had that opportunity. It's about a civic responsibility, an opportunity. It's an internship. It's how you can make a contribution to the advancement of our country. And there's nothing like, I wish that more people had that opportunity, because it can be just kind of an incredible experience. I don't have one regret at all for my time with the National Endowment for the Arts. It's made me, gives me another perspective in terms of the nature of my work currently, and it's one I wouldn't trade in for anything. So when you think about affiliations, and still within the arts and cultural world, it need not be limited to performing arts organizations or visual arts organizations. It can take on the platform of private foundations, community foundations, and also state arts agencies, or at the federal level. The more that we can inject arts and culture into our lives, in our everyday lives, and expand the conversation about arts and culture beyond arts and cultural organizations,
Yep.
then it's at that point that we advance as a society, when there's much more embracing of those values that we hold dear.
Thank you both for that. And again, I
That's
guess
great.
to underscore that too, just in my own work, I have been able to work with a number of museums, like the National Civil Rights Museum, and we're producing the MLK 50 in 2018, and also doing work with the NAACP, right? So there are these ways that you wouldn't necessarily initially see, this is the path, but these are the paths. So thank you both. So it's definitely available to us all. Thank you.
And there are a lot of opportunities for different, as Wayne, you were saying, different arts organizations, such as the NEA, which does such great things for all the arts organizations in the country. When you were working at the National Endowment for the Arts, and you came from an arts background, I think you were with a symphony before that. What were like other staff members or your staff members there? Did they come from the world of the arts primarily?
Yes, and yes.
Okay.
Actually, there are 3 music specialists that were part of my portfolio, and that was music defined in terms of orchestras, opera companies, jazz, choral music, opera, of course, and music festivals. And also the initiatives of the NEA Jazz Masters and the NEA Opera Honors. The specialist, one specialist was a pianist, and that was his major, and whose time with the Arts Endowment is specialized as a music colleague. The second person, ironically, was a pianist. The third person was a vocalist, had interest in being an opera singer, and a division coordinator was also a singer. So it just depends on, but at the same time, the Arts Endowment, which consists of 14 disciplines, and that's not to say that's the disciplines of the country, that's just how the workload was organized. Music and opera being the largest, theater being the second largest portfolio, and that's those who are interested in musical theater or theater itself. Of course, you had the visual arts. So what would tend to happen, I would say most of the directors and specialists have had some aspect of their lives involved as a performance orientation, or as a director of a presenter. And I think because we want to make sure, at least applying the criteria at the National Endowment for the Arts, that those individuals with the portfolios that they've been assigned can resonate within the art form that is the composite of that portfolio. So it's an incredible opportunity. the openings with the National Endowment for the Arts are highly competitive. It's something that I would encourage you to just remain on the radar screen. You may decide that after 10 years in a performance role, you may want to do something else. And that's a perfect example of how your work and involved in your discipline can be applied to others, because it provides an informed voice for the policymakers of national council members and the chair, et cetera, that there's authenticity. You convene peer panels. In other words, those who will assess your projects regarding the field that you represent. And that's the great system about the National Endowment for the Arts as a criteria for projects that are invested. It's not about size. It's about what resonates, what makes a difference in a given community, and how does that advance the work of the organization and the community and the art form overall. John Holmes has been a terrific panelist through the years in terms of that process. And it also, as a panelist, even before I was a director of the program, it helped to inform me, helped me think about those practices that were underway and how I might be able to apply some of those best practices in my own organization. And so that's been a great outcome for those who participate in the panel process and those who also are members of the staff of these various organizations.
No. And the National Endowment for the Arts have helped make this possible today. They do so much for the arts in the country and for Nashville Opera. We also work and benefit greatly from the work locally of the Tennessee Arts Commission and of Metro Arts. And they kind of take care of they look out for the arts groups here in town. Anna, I think Sean was telling me that you're now doing some work either with an arts commission or an arts council. And
I'm the director of arts and culture in Maplewood, New Jersey. I took this job when the whole pandemic happened. So I work with the township in developing arts and culture programming and facilitating between the arts organizations and the town.
See, that's great. And again, that's another opportunity to work in the arts.
Yeah.
In a different type of position.
Yeah.
John, may I offer one other comment, and that has to do,
Sure.
Don't underestimate the value of being an advocate for the art form. Being an advocate at the local state and arts council, being an advocate for the local city council, the Board of Education. We need more of our artists and patrons to play an active role in encouraging local government, local civic organizations to become engaged with advancing the role of the arts and culture in our community. I think would add to our civility. I think it would add to our respect and appreciation one for the other. And it goes beyond a given performance at a given day, but it's how we interact with each other as citizens.
I agree. Mr. Manning, you have your hand up.
Yes, I do. Because I have a quick question real quick before all of this, Okay, so like everybody else, my name is William Manning. I am a music major at Tennessee State University, and I'm also a sophomore. But my question, is actually just for anybody who can answer it. Well, a number of us are interested in the music recording careers. And can either of you speak on, working with recording industries? Like what career possibilities are within the industry?
I am not very familiar with the music, like the recording industry, I have to admit. So I don't, maybe Wayne knows more than I do.
Well, I'll add just a little bit. Recording actually was part of my portfolio with the Arts Endowment. But the real issue is that what I've observed is that increasingly artists are taking command over the composite of their entire operation. And I think that's all part of the entrepreneurship, that you're not only able to be a very convincing and compelling performer, but you understand the role of packaging. You understand the role of making sure that people understand, can embrace who you are, what you represent, what the portfolio calls for, and that increasingly more artists are engaging recording engineers and promoters, but they maintain the rights, they maintain the packaging, they have maintained the say. And I think that sense of ownership matters, and also helps to provide a point of distinction as we move forward. Artists are taking responsibility for how they present themselves, and I think that's a good thing. One can still benefit from the incredible role that Anna will play, or that any number of artist representatives will play, but make sure that your calling card is complete, is impactful, resonates, and is full of energy, because you have to distinguish yourself from so many other artists who are all trying to do something of a similar nature. So for those of you who are interested in the recording business, Mr. Manning, I don't know if you're thinking about owning your own recording company, but to the degree that even at a time when the profile of recording companies is changing drastically, there are still those who are trying to resurrect kind of archival material, reissues, and there's always the opportunity to be affiliated without necessarily putting your entire livelihood on the line with regard to the commercial success. Because what we're running into with social media is that everyone wants to be a specialist, and whether or not everyone's successful in doing so, at least it's become somewhat of a distraction. So I would say, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
That's a good way to summarize it.
That's true. I think Mr. Beatty.
I think
go ahead, Wayne.
Isaiah Bailey was trying to get in there, I think.
Yeah, Mr. Beatty has a question.
Yes, hi, my name is Isaiah Beatty. I am a senior at Tennessee State University studying music liberal arts. And again, thank you all for being here. But my question was towards Anna. I was listening to you saying that your main job objective was to facilitate a musician's musical career. In what aspect would you say, like, in what role are you gearing towards? Is it more towards the performance? I heard you say that you don't know too much concerning the
Recording artists, yeah.
So I was wondering, are there any opportunities outside of performance? I heard you guys speak on gearing towards like people in like the corporate world or whatnot. So could you provide any opportunities outside of just the performance world?
We as a company don't. We're very specific we represent opera singers, conductors, and stage directors. That said, I think that it's very important that an agent is very, very connected and has reach within an industry. So my focus has been to focus on that field, on the classical music field. I know some of my colleagues have expanded their services into TV, movies, and other kinds of areas. I didn't feel like that was where my expertise was. And I think that supplying service to my artists, I want to be very strong in what I can offer. So I just chose to stay in this area. That said, in general, I am a business person, and I always think of any person in any field as a brand and as something that could be sold and negotiated. So even if you are a recording artist, actually my nephew is going to school for recording artists. So I'm going to have to learn some about it. It's the same thing. You are offering a service. You are offering your art form. You're offering your talent. Is how do you leverage that and how to make the best out of it opportunities? I would say the first thing you need to do is network. It's all about who you know and who can open doors for you. So all of you need to, in whatever field you are, you got to keep track of the people that you meet throughout the years, Like you keep track of people that you meet through this master classes. mailboxes, and create a spreadsheet that says, I met so-and-so and this opportunity, this date. You keep track of that, because at some point, if you're going to need something, you can say, hey, email, I met you at this and that event. I would love to ask you a question. I would love to connect with you. So those relationships are not exclusive to opera. They are business skills. You get to know people, network with people, keep track of people. Do not waste your time with nothing. Just if you're going to send an email to somebody just to give them an update on where your career is, really have something to say. So there's no timeline to it. You don't have to do every 3 months or every 6 months. You do have to do it whenever there is really a good advice. You got a scholarship. You're going to do an internship. Those connectors, those people that you connected over the years should know that about you, because you never know when he's going to be approached or she's going to be approached about having a sound engineer and for a project. And immediately, I remember that kid. That kid wrote me a couple of times. Let me see if he's still doing that. That is the kind of network you need to do at in any place in your career that you are. Okay.
John, if I may add just one comment to Anna's description, networking is very important. I would say, but make sure it's coupled with your own sense of confidence of what you bring to the conversation. In other words, have something to say. And so you might have a wonderful Rolodex, but it's important to know how to use it.
Yes.
And I want to encourage you to really be sure that you know those areas where you have grounding, where you excel, where you're confident, and make sure that is shared. So I believe in networking, and I believe that you have a responsibility at the same time as part of that exercise.
And I'm going to add one more thing. Make sure that those relationships you're building throughout the years are authentic relationships. They come from a place of actually wanting to see human to human, that they don't feel like you just want something. I think that's very important as well.
If I may, I know as we're coming to a close, and I want to kind of underscore something too that Mr. Wayne had kind of brought up in a sense of like, embracing the local community. Both of these, all of these students are students of Tennessee State University and Fisk University. These institutions have a deep history in our city and really for the country of stirring the changes that are necessary for a community, and even that go beyond just where we are locally. The freedom riders and those who protested in those sit-ins and things in downtown Nashville came from these such institutions. And so I just want to kind of say that that kind of fight is within all of us, and is carried through us and through our institutions, so that we can also make that sort of change and that kind of push within our local industry that will also lead beyond. So just wanted to kind of underscore that point as well.
Excellent. We have about 5 minutes. So does anybody have any other question for our panelists?
I want to say, do you want a question? That question is important. And then I'll say what I want to say.
Okay. Ms. Hinton, go ahead.
I was just going to see if we would have access to your emails, John, Anna, and Wayne, at the end of this, so that we could at some point ask any questions that we might have after the masterclass is complete. By any chance, would we have access?
Yeah, Patrick can send you mine for all you to that. Okay.
Patrick, you can send it to everyone except for Alicia. No, send it out.
Yeah, well, yes, we can definitely do that, Patrick, and Hannah can help with that too, and we can make sure we stay connected, because both Wayne and Anna, you're right, networking is such a part of this business, and just staying in touch. I always ask artists that we work with is just, drop me a line, send me an email, let me know where you are, what you're up to, because it's easy to fall off the radar.
Yep.
There's so many people. Anna, why don't let me give it to you, and you may have the last word here.
Okay, so what I want to say is we are in a time in our country where, you know, people that look like us are going to get opportunities, because people and companies and government and institutions are looking to diversify our stages, our offices, everything. So you will at least get to go through the door for that interview. I mean, you will have more opportunities that you would have had 5 years ago. My recommendation to you is bring yourselves along. So you will get that opportunity. I've gotten opportunity because I'm a Latinx woman. So, and when I gotten those opportunities, I make sure that I leave the door open for others to come behind me. All right. So I just want to advise you, you're going to get the opportunities because of the color of your skin, then take advantage of it, maximize it, be loud, say it. Don't just be shy. Don't be a fly on the wall. Be part of the conversation and bring others along with you. That's what I want to say.
Okay. Wayne, do you have
just that I just remembered that Fisk University was recipient of the 2008 NEA Council Awards, and it's a strong tradition. I have many friends whose families who have been students and faculty members. Same way with Tennessee State. So it plays a very important part in our culture and in our lives. You have responsibility as those who will go on from your time currently and into the world at large, and make sure that you can carry that sense of pride and affiliation that these two institutions have brought to America for so many years, so that can continue. In other words, those words, pass it forward, do just that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Wayne and Anna, for being here with us today. It's been really terrific. Thank you so much. I want to say a special thanks again to our sponsors that have made this possible. And that would be a very big thank you to the National Endowment for the Arts, Opera America Innovation Grant, and the Ann and Gordon Getty Foundation. Thank you to South Arts and the Andrew Mellon Foundation.
And thank you, John, for the invitation to join you, Patrick, fellow students, for the opportunity for us to make a small contribution to today's session. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, guys. It's great to see you all.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We'll have another one in January, I believe, Patrick. And we'll have 5 more of these in the spring, 1 each month. And thank you very much for joining us again, Wayne, Anna. Thank you so much for being here. This was really terrific. And,
thank you, guys.
And we will see you next time. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Hey, this is John Hooms. I hope you'll join us this Saturday night, November the 14th at 7 p.m. for Opera Jukebox, streaming free at nashvilleopera.org and Facebook.